administrative items is to remind everybody that we will be recording today's session. And once we have it uploaded to the VLab, we'll send out an email letting everyone know where they can go to view it, should they want to review the contents of our demo in a more leisurely pace. The other item I thought I'd mention real quick is that oh yes, I have everyone placed on mute, and that's to, of course, prevent any background noise from interfering with our demonstration. And so that means that when we do get to questions and answers, folks will have to use the GoToMeeting raise your hand feature to indicate that they've got a question to ask. Or, of course, you can always post your question in the GoToMeeting questions or chat box. So with that, let me go ahead and mention that we try to tailor our demos a little bit to our audience. So I'm going to put a short poll question up for your consideration. And if you would take a second or two to give us some sense of what your experience level is with a virtual lab, we'd very much appreciate it. And give you about 30 seconds to read through the question and then give us a response. And while you're doing that, I'll mention that we have two more demos coming up, one on the 23rd of January and another on the 31st of January. And they'll cover essentially the same material that we'll be discussing today. But these demos are open to anybody in the National Weather Service. So if you have coworkers or staff that you feel might benefit from learning more about the virtual lab, please encourage them to attend one of the subsequent demos. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll, and then we can quickly share that with you guys so you can see what the experience level is. And it looks like we've got a fair number of people who say that they use it occasionally and are actually accessing some of the content and code. So I expected there might be a few more who perhaps had not even visited the virtual lab, but it seems like we got a good cross-section of user experience levels, so Ken can make note of that. In fact, we have some that are seasoned users, so maybe we can incorporate some of their input later on. All righty. So let me go ahead and get back to the screen. Okay. And I better, let's see, I don't think you're seeing my screen, so let me, there we go. Yeah, there we go. I think, no, hold on a second. There we go, finally, back up to the screen. Okay. I really want to thank you for your poll input, and we are basically going to proceed with sort of a demo that's broken up into two pieces. I'll be providing an overview of the demo of the virtual laboratory using some PowerPoint slides, and then after that, a short demo or short discussion. We'll turn it over to Ken, and he will go ahead and get into the nuts and bolts of the demonstration itself. And together, the two pieces should take about an hour, but that'll leave us then 30 minutes for the time allocated to entertain some questions that you may have, and perhaps to go into some more detail on functionality that you want to learn more about. Alrighty. So one last poll question I'd like to put before you. You know, we have these demos with the goal of trying to improve your understanding of the virtual lab. And so we'd like to sort of capture your going in knowledge. So let me try once again to do the poll question. There we go. Now, okay, so what we're trying to look for here is a sense of, based on your understanding pre-demonstration, what is your sense of the value of the virtual lab to you personally? If you could just take a second or two to give me your feedback, and then we'll press into some slides. All right, another 3 or 4 seconds. All righty, and I'll go ahead and close the poll now. Thank you for your input. Okay. So what exactly is the virtual lab? And it's always good to kind of start off with maybe a dictionary type definition. And so let's look at this one. It's not all comprehensive, of course, but it should give you some sense of what we're talking about. It's basically a set of services and an IT framework which enables NOAA employees and their partners, so you can read that as you, to share ideas, to collaborate, to engage in software development, and conduct applied research. So all those words boiled down to a couple icons, and it's basically a set of tools that you can then use to make your life easier. And in this day and age of a lot to do in the National Weather Service, who doesn't need something that's going to help make their life easier? So that's what we're here to do, is to basically introduce you to the VLab and help you see the value that it represents. And one thing we can do is to take a little bit of a historical look at the virtual lab and see how long it's been around and how it's evolved over time. If we look back to February of 2012, so that's about 5 years ago, there was a vision team set up, and they were to sort of refine some requirements for the virtual lab, which they did very well. And then within a year, we had a working virtual lab that people were leveraging to do things with. And after a period of growth and refinement, we realized that the virtual lab, really merited a new home, a place where it could grow, where it could access resources available, such as the data that the National Weather Service and NOAA have available and so forth. And so in December of 2014, the virtual lab found a new home in the IDP, which is NOAA's premier internet hosting site. And so that's where it's been now for the last couple of years. It's continued to mature over that time, and we now have a tool which people are finding considerable value in. So let's take a look at a little bit about the growth I mentioned earlier. This goes back to when we first started keeping these metrics back to January of 2013. So we're talking 4 years ago. You can see that we've grown to over 4,000 users within the virtual laboratory, and we call these collaborators. These are the folks making use of the communities that we'll talk a little bit about going forward. And then in red, you can see on the left here the number of software developers, and that now has reached over 2,000 as well. So a hefty number of people, both NOAA employees as well as our partners, participating in the virtual lab. This shakes out to a number of communities and projects, and for now you can just think of these as sections of the virtual lab that people are using to accomplish cool things. And within these communities, we've got about 400 plus of those, and we've grown to nearly just over 200 projects. I'm sorry, it's the reverse. We have 200 communities and over 400 software development projects. So clearly there's been some impressive growth over time. Another way to look at this growth is through Google Analytics. This shows the change in the sessions, which is the number of sessions on a periodic basis in dark blue, and then the number of users. And again, you can see, since we've been keeping these metrics back in April of 2014, that there's been continued and steady growth in both those metrics. And if you take the number of sessions and the average time that Google indicates that people have been on the VLab, multiply those two together and look out over time, the NOAA staff has spent over 27,000 hours working on the VLab and leveraging its capabilities to improve and to accomplish the mission of the virtual lab. So when you get into the virtual lab, what might you expect to find? Well, the first thing you would probably learn as you get more familiar with the virtual lab is that there's sort of two pieces of it. The first involves those communities that we mentioned, and the second involves these software development projects. And each of these two pieces have their own set of tools that you can leverage to accomplish your job, to improve the way you do business. And so let's take a look at what you might find in a typical community. We have something called document libraries, and essentially these are what they sound like, a place to store files. But the nice thing about the document library is that not only can you search for files based on the file title, let's say, but the virtual lab goes ahead and indexes the content to those files, so you can dig deep down in and find things based on a good and very powerful search capability. We also have web content available, and the nice thing about this is that there are editors which allow you to create this beautiful looking web content to share all kinds of information with members of the community, but it allows you to do it without having to know the details of HTML. So you can insert links and add images and then, of course, format your text very easily. We have forums, which are nice ways for people to discuss topics, to come to consensus, to evolve an idea. And these forums, you can do the discussion within the virtual lab using the interfaces that are provided there. But just as powerful, you can conduct these discussions over email threads right from the client that you use for say your Google Mail, for example. So it's very easy to go ahead, store these discussions for later referencing, go back to see how things evolved over time. There's also a wiki tool which allows for sort of collaborative development of say a document or some information. And the nice thing here is that, of course, it spreads the work around so that many hands make light the work, as it were. And so wikis are very powerful ways to sort of capture things, to evolve them, and get more input from other people in a sort of a productive way. And then finally, there are blogs, so that if within a community there are experienced experts, let's say, and they want to share some knowledge or information, then they can post items to the blog, and then people who subscribe to the blog can read about it or have it delivered directly to their email address. So now let's take a look at what one might find in terms of tools for on the project side. So the first item we have is issue tracking, and this is provided by an application called Redmine. Issue tracking in terms of software development allows users to basically identify issues or problems or things that they can improve with their software and track who does the changes and so forth. But the issues can also be modified to represent project tasks and milestones. So you might just have a project of some type, maybe not even related to software development, which you could use this tool to sort of manage your project. But assuming you are dealing with software, you're going to need to store the software somewhere. And so the VLab provides both Git and Subversion repositories. This allows you to sort of maintain versions of your software. And then if you're really interested in developing high-quality code, you'll obviously want to go through a code review process. And we offer in the virtual lab an application called Garrett, which structures the code review, sort of integrates the issues, the code, and also the review process so that certain people playing certain roles can review and then move the software on to that pristine repository that represents the finished product, as it were. And then if you've done any develop, you know that there's the need for perhaps some quality control, perhaps testing, building software to make sure that there are no errors, and maybe even integrating various components into a formal release. And that's where Jenkins comes in and provides that level of service within the virtual laboratory. So these are some of the tools that the virtual lab has available for both people who are doing collaboration as well as people who are doing software development. So what kind of communities might you expect to see? Well, here we have a very small subset of the, I think it was 200 communities. But if we look down the list, we can see some pretty important, mission-related topics here. Things like one of the ones I like to always mention is the National Blend of Models, an ongoing effort within the virtual laboratory to help improve the national blend. And then maybe on this side, you can see the AWIPS community is there. very high visibility project, very important for forecasters across the National Weather Service. So there are small and large communities, some with just a few people and some with hundreds of people, all contributing. In terms of projects, you'll see sometimes there are some of the similar names from the community side also present on the project side. And AWIPS is one example of that, as is the National Blend. But it needn't be that a project has a community. It can be, it can be either or kind of scenario depending on the needs of the development effort or the project. And it's also probably interesting to note that if you have any familiar with the IDP, any project or application that plans to run on the IDP ultimately has to come through the VLab on its way to that implementation. So, we've seen that there are communities and projects, and we may be asking, well, how is this all managed? I mean, what if I want to get involved? Well, this brings us to the VLab's key concept. And in this case, it's important to realize that as the VLab grows, the virtual lab support team just doesn't have the resources to do everything. So we have this concept called you own it, so to speak. And so you have your community, that bright red, let's see, what is this? I guess that's a Corvette. And maybe you have your bright blue project. We will set those up for you. We will get them ready to work. And then we give you the keys so that you can go out and drive them to success down the road for your project or community. But the good news is that although the bulk of the work is incumbent upon the members of the community or the members of the project, we have the virtual lab support team there standing ready to assist you as you continue to flesh out and improve upon your community and project. So we're always available Monday through Friday via email, and at the end of the demo, we'll provide you the email again so you can see where to go for help. Okay, so let's see. So a couple facts that I thought I'd throw out there just to give you some level of understanding on where sort of the pieces kind of fit together a little bit. So one of the things we'd like to mention is that the virtual lab support team is part of the STI, resides in the Meteorological Development Laboratory, and we're the ones who sort of have brought this baby along to where it is today and continue to manage it. And so it's all done within the National Weather Service and with dedicated resources. The VLab also is very important in the AWIPS process. You can see here that if you want to get source from the virtual lab, so if you're developing an application to run on the within the AWIPS framework, then you would come to the virtual lab to get that source code. And then, of course, if you are developing an application and you want it to get into the baseline, then you're going to have to go through the virtual lab community, to figure out how to do that, and then ultimately through the virtual lab to have your software released for use within the field. And another example of where the virtual lab is playing a critical role is in the AWIPS. So behind the AWIPS firewall, the AWIPS integrated reference allows folks to basically access information relevant to tools and techniques within AWIPS so that they can better use that tool to accomplish their mission. So as we begin to transition into the actual demonstration, I wanted to leave you with a few ideas that you can kind of mull over as Ken goes through these various tools and capabilities of the virtual lab, and you can see how you might use them within your day-to-day business. And so here are some things that people have used the virtual lab for. One thing they use it for is just sort of keeping tabs on what's going on out there. So they can go into the virtual lab, survey the names of the various communities and projects to see what people are working on. In the case of open communities, they go in and look around and see what information is available. And some of those provide sort of updated, sort of what's going on right now, all kinds of information. So it's a good way to keep tabs on what's going on because we're a large organization and there's a lot going on. You can also, if you have information, document, something going on something you're working on, you want to share it with folks within the National Weather Service, there's probably no better place now than the virtual lab to get your information out in front of people so they can make use of it. People also use it to work through issues, with other people. So if you're trying to figure out the best way to do something, this is a great place, great tool to bring those people together into a community and discuss that. People also work with others to improve and develop new products and services. So this is a great tool for the field with various field-initiated efforts to develop new tools and techniques. They can propose an idea to make things better, so you'll probably see ways in the virtual lab that if you have a great idea that you want to get the management's attention, hey, the virtual lab has ways of doing that for you. Increase the visibility of your own local project across NOAA. So if you've been doing something dutifully for some time and you think it's ready for outside input, this is the tool for you to make that happen. Find and share training material. Lots of information that the virtual lab needs, that the National Weather Service wants to provide as training, is now being hosted on the virtual lab, and so you'll see more about that in Ken's demo. If you want to share code that you've developed, so get it out there to other people and let them play around with it, virtual lab is ideally suited for that. And then, of course, if you want to work together as a team to develop some code from scratch, or continue to develop existing code, the virtual lab has tremendous tools for making that a much more efficient and productive process. Manage a project with task milestones and requirements. As I alluded to, this can be done using Redmine. Find someone with a skill. Let's say you're doing a project and you want to find someone who's got a similar interest or a skill set that you could use. The virtual lab has the ability to do that. And I think Ken will probably show you the detail. And then finally, if you want to organize your life, collecting all that digital information that your project or your group of people have spread out all over the internet into one place, the virtual lab is, again, a perfect way to do that. It's a what we call a well, it aggregates information, so it's a portal. And one of the features it brings to it is the ability to aggregate information into a single location and bring search to bear on that. So with that, I will turn it over to Ken Sparrow, who will give us the demonstration of the virtual lab.
Okay, welcome. So I'm going to show you kind of the nuts and bolts of the virtual lab first, and then from there we will go ahead and get into some of those specific use cases that John just went through. So I'm at Google. I'm going to go to the virtual lab. I wanted to show you the sign-in process as well. So VLab. If I come out here, you'll notice that it automatically logged me in. That was because we've implemented something called single sign-on. It ties in with Google. So as a NOAA user, we all have access to Google. And if you're signed into Google with your NOAA account, it'll automatically sign you in. A couple caveats to that, or one specific caveat: if you're working from a workstation within the AWIPS network, the single sign-on will not work. And there's actually a form there. So if I sign out, you'll see it. So I'm going to remain logged in, and you'll use the screen name, which is your NOAA, credentials, and without that, NOAA.gov, and then your password. So that would be the same as your, NOAA mail credentials. But if you are signed in, this makes it very easy and nice. So as John indicated, this is the first thing we're going to walk through is collaboration services. This is the community or portal side of the virtual lab, and let's just look at some of the mechanics. Each of the pages there's a navigation bar going across the top. I'm going to turn off this since I'm an administrator, so it'll appear more like what you guys, most people are going to see it. And so the landing page has access to it, to some things that we think people are going to want to do to start out. And so some of those things, or some of the main things, are with regard to communities. And so a community is basically a group of web pages and members and tools, and then typically surrounding some specific topic. And so to find out, what communities, when you first log in for the very first time, and I noticed about a third of the people on the call today, are just coming into VLab pretty fresh. So in those cases, you're going to come in here and you're not going to be a member of any community other than the virtual lab itself. And so what you're going to want to do is click on this Join an Existing Community. That'll bring up a pop-up, and it's going to list out all the different communities that are available within Virtual Lab, and there are 164 here. You notice that we said somewhere around 200. That's because there are about 35 communities that are private, so they don't show up in this list. And people do that for reasons that perhaps it's content in there that they just don't want to advertise. And so communities can be open, meaning that anyone in the virtual lab logged in can join it. They can be restricted, meaning that you have to request membership to join it. If it's open, you just click on the join and you're immediately a member of that community. But you can come in here, and then I guess the last community type is private. And like I said, those aren't listed here. If you do have a private community, and anyone can request a community, those communities are, you have to add the members to your community as opposed to them joining them. So let's look at how would you go about finding things. You can peruse them, but as the community, the number of communities increases, that becomes less efficient. So you could say, all right, well, let's find things related to AWIPS. You can come into here, and then the first hit is the AWIPS community. So if you have an interest in AWIPS, I highly recommend joining this community. It has lots of relevant information regarding governance, local development, and pretty much the milestones. And I'll demonstrate this later. But so you would just click on join if you weren't a member already. You can also leave communities if you decide that this isn't really for me. Some of the communities are highlighted, like this one here, with a hyperlink. What that means is that the community actually has a set of public pages. So those pages are available even if you're not a member of the community. And so it's oftentimes you might want to know more than just a description here, and so you can do that. So anyway, that's how you go in and join, search for communities, and join the communities themselves. So once you've joined the communities, you'll see on the landing page that you have My Communities here. And so these are the communities that you're a member of, and you can click on any of those to go to the community, to go to those sets of pages. That's one option. It'll bring it up in another window. The other option, which I typically prefer, is that there's a drop-down in the upper right up here called My Communities, and that's going to list out all the communities that you're a member of. You might notice that some of these have two listings, and that's because the communities that have two actually have two sets of pages. They have private pages that are accessible only by community members, and then public pages that are accessible to either any VLab user or any user, even unauthenticated user, depending upon how the community owner has set up those pages with regard to permission. So that's, you can click on any of those and go to it. So for example, if we wanted to go to that AWIPS community I was talking about up front, you just click on that. That's going to then take you to the community. If at any point you want to get back to the main VLab page, the default landing page, the easiest way of doing that is just clicking on the virtual lab over here at this icon, and that'll take you right back to it. So again, the layout's the same. The navigation bar, if you can have multiple levels. The default right now is 2 levels. So if you want to have, these are projects, Thin Client and BMH. Those are projects with regard to AWIPS, and they have specific pages for them. And then, so like I said, there's governance. You can come in here and see that. So anyway, that's kind of the a very, very quick demonstration of the mechanics. So some of the other things I want to highlight is this help menu up here in the top. So there's a user's guide. If you have questions, I recommend that you go to the user's guide and you can look through the topics there and see if something's relevant to what you're looking for. Also, searching, as John indicated, is a very powerful way of finding information. And so there's a global search up here. So if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to look for documents or content, discussions, everything in the virtual lab is indexed. So what I mean by that is, as John indicated in the presentation, the community's part of it is there's a web content management system, so their web pages, web content, their documents, and we'll go through this, can be uploaded. There are forum discussions, so National Blended Models is an excellent example, and I'll show you that briefly. So what's happening there? Wiki pages, blogs, where people are disseminating information that's relevant to their community. All of that content is indexed, and so if I come in here and I search for tornado and I say everything, that's going to search over all of the communities that you're a member of, and so I can do that, and then it's going to return, and basically what you have here, it's called a faceted search, but the important thing is that you can start looking at the results, and then you can restrict your results too. So let's say, I only want to know about tornadoes and with regard to the facets community. And so I can do that. I can just click on facets. That will then restrict it to content that's within the facets. I can also go in and restrict the type of result. So was it a blog entry, or was it found within a document? Was it a forums message or a wiki page? And then it breaks it down in terms of the tags that were used. When people add content to the virtual lab, you have an opportunity of tagging it, so it'll be more readily found. The indexes search for things, and some of the big hits obviously would be the title, the tags, and then the description. For content that is uploaded, like documents and things like that, it actually scans and indexes the body of the message as well, or body of the document. Those get lower weights, but again, it will find things based upon that. So you can continue narrowing it down. There are also centrally managed categories. So, and then, when was this modified? So that's, if you want to go back to the previous, you just click on that. And so that's, and then, you can click on any of these to go, if you actually are interested in that, you can click on it, and it should take you to the document. So, so I've touched on search, help I didn't finish, and that is if you need help, click on that. And as John indicated, the Virtual Lab support team is here to help, and the administration, our email address is vlab.admin@noaa.gov, and we have a dedicated person on staff during business hours that will help people. You can also provide us with feedback. You can go to troubleshooting forums that we have, where we've tried to document things that come up often. And if you want to improve the virtual lab, you can come in here and go to the virtual lab improvement team, and there's a form there where you can actually submit an idea for us. If you have an idea that you said, hey, I think this would really improve the VLab. And lastly, there are two other categories. One is request a consultation, and that is, perhaps you've requested, or you have a community, or you have a project within the virtual lab, and you just need some help figuring some things out. Or if you want to do something, you want to, we're here, we've done a lot of this over the past few years. So if, oftentimes within an hour we can get you set and on your way, where it may take quite a bit longer if you're doing that on your own. And lastly, a demo. So you can request a demo, and one of our staff members will give you a private demo, and that way it can be tailored to your needs. So that's getting help. So I think I've touched on the major components. So let's start going through some of the use cases, okay? So let me see, one sec. I'm bringing up a document. So, all right. So one thing is that one of the big areas, of course, is there are specific NWS initiatives or products and services, and you want to be involved with those. And so one of the areas that I mentioned was like the National Blend of Models. And so the way that they handle that is they've utilized forums within their community. And it's pretty much, that's the main mechanism which they use. So they have this forum, and so if you're interested in the National Blend of Models, you can come in here and join this community and subscribe. So what that means is if I subscribe to the forum, you're going to get email messages anytime someone posts something within it. It also gives you the ability to respond to those messages. You can also initiate a new post or a new thread through email because they have a dedicated email address for this forum. As I mentioned, search is critical, so all past discussions are all within the forum, and those can all be found. You can search specifically if you're just looking for forum messages within the National Blend of Models. You could do it right here, or you could do it higher level, and you could select just this community, and that's not just going to get forum messages. It might get the documents and things like that related to it too. But this allows for images. I didn't look at this beforehand, so I don't know if this is going to be a good example. No, that's not a very good example. Let me see if I can find another one. Oftentimes what's being used in this community are images, and those images can convey a lot of information. So so here's an example where they've actually used like animated GIF images. And so the advantage is if you're subscribed, you would actually get this in an email. You could respond to it, or you could come out to the site and do it too. So that's an excellent way of being engaged. So that's that. There's also a couple other examples are the probabilistic snow experiment and the RTMA. Those both are using the forum categories as a way of managing content within their communities. So some other examples are ways to develop new products and services. So one thing you might want to do is let's take a look at a couple other areas. So the Central Region Sioux site, they have a bunch of, they've changed the look and feel a little bit here, but you can come in here and they have other, so what I was looking for, so forecast links, publications. So they've got a lot of content that's available within their community, and they've done an excellent job of incorporating lots of different media within it, ranging from YouTube videos. They've done that within here. You can display it right within there. Images and things like that. And the thing to note about this is that it's all being done through tools through the web interface. It's not requiring them to go in and create websites, using HTML as John indicated. So I want to note that. Another area, another example of a community developing new products and services, there's something called Tower S, and so let me show you that. And this is specifically around satellites. So if we come into this community, they've done a nice job of keeping this page nice and clean, and they define what the purpose of the community, so you can come in here and you can look at it. And then there's a lot more here as well in terms of they have a lot of online documentation that's being generated, and actually they're generating a lot of this in an automated fashion. So if that's something that interests you, they're actually using some of the web services that are available through VirtualLab to update content. They're even using, there's some pages here that they use in terms of status. So if you can go in and look at the processing and satellite processing and status of these particular satellites, and it's being updated, so you can see that within the VirtualLab. So there's a lot of things being done within these communities, and so that's something of interest. Okay, so in terms of one area that we're just building out, and it'll be going live at the end of this month, and we've been working with Ken Johnson and Brian Maretsky from Eastern Region on this, and that is they have this concept of an ideas marketplace. And so that's something that we've been working with them for about a year on, and it's finally at its last stages, and it's going to be going live into VLab, but it's not a VLab production yet. Like I said, it'll be in by the last end of the month, but what we do have it out on our dev site, so I just wanted to very quickly show you that and give you an idea. So, okay. All right, so within here we have this ideas marketplace, and it will be a top-level link. And so the concept here is that it's going to allow within the weather service for users to come in and suggest different ideas, and then by adding an idea, and then you can subscribe to the ideas marketplace, and that'll basically the same concept as the forums is you get email notifications when new ideas are proposed. Then once you get that, you can come in here, go to the idea, click on it, get more information about that idea, and then once that idea is, so you can come in here, see there could be documents attached to the idea, you can give a description, images, things like that. These, of course, are just test ideas. And then there's a forum that's dedicated to the idea as well. So, I can come in and subscribe or unsubscribe to a specific idea, and then you subscribe. You'll get any updates or forum posts or things like that specific to that idea. So anyway, that's going to be, the first initiative will come from Eastern Region, and but that's headed your way. And so I think that'll be a powerful tool and way for people to collaborate and think through different ideas. So that's there. Once an idea is more mature, you can go in and you can actually look at projects. And so if we come back over here, we have a couple different areas dealing with projects. There's the Weather Service Pseudo Projects Dashboard. And so these are high-level projects that are being tracked within the Pseudo community, and specifically Dave Myrick is, leading that effort. And so these are specific projects. You can come into here. You can search through them too. There's 17 at this current time. They'll continue to increase. And so you can see then from this, get more information about it, the name, updates to the project. There are quad charts that are loaded. If there's an associated project web page, you can link to it, or a community within the virtual lab. This will allow you to link to it as well, and then find out who are the project sponsors and the project leads. So, and then if you want to know who the members are, you can look in here, and you can see that too. So that's an interesting way of looking at projects that are being led by the pseudos within the Weather Service. There's also the NOAA Project Registry, and the NOAA Project Registry is more focused at NOAA's level, but again, there are Weather Service projects within here. These are typically higher level projects, and the idea here is that NOAA is attempting to be able to track projects through their life cycle, and specifically research to operations. And so there are research RL levels, and these then indicate the maturity of the product or project and how far along it is moving. There's an advanced search form that you can come in here and search for specific line offices, and then you can get information, specific information on one of these by just coming in here and clicking on it. So if we want to know about this specific project, then you can get the description, the owner, and data entry points, and then a little bit more information about where is this being transitioned to, and where is it going to be deployed, and then how mature it is. So that's projects registry. And let me go to one more thing. Okay, so we've covered developments, the ideas. So some of the other things that you can do are share documents, and so so this is an area where we have the science sharing section, and so if you have scientific articles and things like that that you think would be of interest to NOAA or the Weather Service, you can add those, upload those to the document library. And so those are, again, all of this is searchable, and so you can come in here if we just wanted to know. I'm taking this simple case, but so these are documents dealing with tornado genesis or tornadoes. And some of the other things is if we click on it, it then would allow us to come into here, and you can actually preview it without downloading it. So if I want to go into here, I can take a look at the document, and without actually having to download to computer and see, is this something that interests me? I can go in and I can give the document a rating. I can also provide comments on the document if you want to. So there's a lot that can be done there. So that's that, and it supports versioning. And again, as I mentioned earlier, all those documents are scanned and are found, or you can find them within the search index. So that's that. And so another thing that communities within the virtual lab are used for is more like an intranet. And so a good example of that is the One Stop community. And this is a community that's being used by STI. And they basically organized all of their materials ranging from the start hiring process through retirement and everything in between. And so you can, as a member of STI, you can come into here and get all of that information, and it's all available. So they basically, this is a great example of a way in which to consolidate everything that you need to know into one location. And so if we wanted to know, for example, training opportunities, you can click on that and read through. the training and development. If you wanted to go back and you want to get the directory, this links to the most recent OSTI telephone list. So these are it's just the nice thing about this is that you've got one place to go, and that can be very powerful. So, all right, and so sharing an idea on a product and service. There's another community called Wave that that is a good example of people doing this. So let's see if, yeah, there it is, Wave. And so again, they've used animated GIFs and things like that to add some interest to their site. They're asking, this is a good example of using a best case where they show right up front what's the purpose of this community, latest updates. There are tools within VLab that allow you to that your site stays fresh without you having to go in and make constantly add like what's new and things like that. There are portlets. That's what each of these things are called, as a portlet. But anyway, this allows you to say what is Wave. So and then they use the wiki, and I haven't really dug into that other than the forums, but there's a wiki, and that's an excellent way of tying or having multiple people contribute to a document, and it has all their versioning and everything else you'd expect from a wiki. There's the content management system within the site, and so the CMS allows you to come in here, as John indicated, and update the page. I'm not seeing the controls because I've got it turned off, but as an admin, if I were a site administrator, I'd just come in here. Let's say we wanted to update the text in one of these or update an image. I just come in here and change that language, publish it, and immediately you would see that. But then again, it is keeping versions, so you can go back to a previous version of something if there was a mistake. So that's a content management system. There's also a blog capability, and that can be, people can subscribe to that, and that's something that's useful too. All right, so training. So let's take a look at some things that are being done with training. One of the things that I think is exciting is a consolidated reference, or AWIPS integrated reference. And this is, I think, hopefully most people are aware of it within 16.4.1. It just got rolled out this to the AWIPS workstations. There's a option when you're looking at a product within D2D of being able to see reference material associated with it. And that basically takes you, when you right-click on that, it's going to take you to the following page. And I'll show you that. So it's going to take you to this page right here, and it's going to be pre-populated with the tags that are associated with a product that you're looking at within D2D. In this case, you can also come here and just do searches directly. And so if I want to see things regarding MPing, which is a specific project, you can then come in here, click on this. It's going to then show you content, reference content that was developed in support of AWIPS. And so if you want to see everything that's currently developed with regard to error, you can just do a star, and it'll pull it all down, and then you can come into here and look at it. These are the content so far has primarily been developed by the Warning Decision Training Division, which is a member of the OCLO, but other groups are starting to develop things as well. So I can come up here and change that setting. I know that NASA Sports is going to be developing content, and there's some other satellite groups that are developing content. So there's a lot that, and these can be very rich. So it can point to web content, it could point to a document that someone uploaded, or it can point to a web page itself, and so the behavior depends upon. I'm trying to think about another good one. So there's a composite reflectory boundary tool. The cave fundamentals, I think, is a good example of another site that they've done it. So within VLab, they've developed this content that allows you to come in here and see, lots of different information. And this is very rich content. So, okay, so that's that. And so I think it's time for us to, because we're running low, to get into the development services side. So let's go back. I always click on this button here. That's going to take you there. And so on the development services, you can come into here, and you can see then one thing that you can do is if you want to have visibility in terms of the projects that are taking place, we have this hierarchical type view here, and it allows for searching. So you can either peruse it or you can search it. And if I want to know AWIPS specific communities, I can search for AWIPS, just AWIPS, and then come in here and look at all the different AWIPS related projects that are underway. If you want to know more about the project, you can hover over this little box here that's going to give you the description from the community side, from the project side. And then if you're interested in knowing who the points of contact are, you can click on the user there, and that'll pull that up. If it's a community that's open, you can just click on this. It'll then take you over to the virtual lab. And again, we have this hooked up with single sign-on through Google. And so you can come in here, and then it would take you right to that particular project. And so this is on Redmine. These are the different projects. So that's one way of seeing the projects, is over from the collaboration services side. The other option is you can come into here. So again, it's just vlab.nsep.no.gov/redmine. You can get to it from the collaboration services side, or you can type it in directly. And so there are, if you click on the projects at the top, you will see all the projects that you're a member of and all of the projects that are open. Open projects within Virtual Lab are, they're only open to members of the VLab. So you have to have NOAA credentials to get in here, or be an external partner that has an account that's sponsored by NOAA. So these are the projects, and so let's run through a couple of them so that you can kind of get a sense for what you can do within the projects themselves. So let's take a look, and let's look at 18 hazard services. This is the next warning decision tool. It's being developed within the virtual lab. It's quite a team has Weather Service Headquarters, GSD, and then Raytheon, the prime contractor, are all involved with it. And so there's a lot of activity typically within the project, and you can see things that are going on today in terms of changes to issues, and code is being checked in. This revision down here, so you can click on the revision. That one there was blank, so that wasn't a very exciting one because it was a merge. But if I go into the repository view, that will then take you, and you can see from that all of the commits into the repository. They're using Git as a way to change. This is a bad one because it's such a huge repository. It takes a while to refresh. So it's not a great one to demo, but it has a lot of activity in it. So I might give up on this in a minute. Yeah, I'll go ahead. So issues. So issues are, it was mentioned that it was designed for software development. It doesn't necessarily have to be software development. We have projects that are being projects have issues in terms of requirements can be tracked with the tool, and we have examples of many different projects, if you're interested, that are using it for requirements development. They can be related to one another. There's a Gantt type chart that's generated dynamically based upon those issues, and as I indicated, you can have relationships within the issues themselves. There's also the repository, as I mentioned. There's a wiki here too. You've got a roadmap, and so let me see if I can get to one of the other examples. So let me show you an example of requirements. So click on it over here. So this is the IDSS portal. This is in support of like Impacts Catalog, which is part of the roadmap and a very high priority project. So they've defined all of their requirements within the virtual lab, and then each of those can be, you can look at the details, and then there's a workflow associated with it. You can tie it in with the code once it's actually been developed. So there's a lot that can go on there. And so I think that's some of the highlights. I want to give time for questions so that I can tailor content if there's a need. If there aren't questions, and then we can go back and I can continue on. One other thing I just wanted to show you was that in terms of the projects and ways that the Weather Service has taken advantage of Redmine is to use it at the WFO or RFC level. And so what I mean by that is, so there are a number of WFOs within each of the regions that have used this as a means to, for example, Stirling has it, so that they track work that needs to be done at the site. And so they've broken it up in terms of the work that needs to be done by the ITOs, the SU, the WCM, and then closed type issues. And then you can see the activity related to those. And this is work that perhaps needs to be done to specific workstations, or it can be anything. But we have specific issues or trackers that can be used to support this, and we've worked with them to improve upon it. So a handful of sites have used this and are using it very successfully to track issues at their site. So with that, let me just review my notes really quick to make sure I didn't miss anything important. I didn't touch on Find an Expert. That's something that's within the community side. And so again, on that main landing page, let me go to the production site, not the development site. So within the site, you have up here on the right, Find an Expert. And what this is it's intended to give you the ability, and there's some description here on the right, of basically finding people that have self-registered and finding people that might be great to collaborate with, or be someone that might be able to help you out, and so you could reach out to them. So you can come into here and do a search, and so if I want to search for example, Redmine, that's a project that we use for issue tracking. The following people have mentioned Redmine within their entry, and so I can go in here, and so like I have that. I can click on the name, it'll take you to their profile page, and it'll give you a little bit more information about them. And so you can see these tags here, the categories. And as an individual user, when you come in, you can go to your profile, which is in the upper right, My Profile, and go in here and edit your profile, and then you can specify your job title, a little bit about you, and then your work organization, and then that then will be included in the search, so others can potentially find you. We're looking at making a change too, so that you would have your own private page where it would list out like your projects, your issues, things that are specific to you. And so that would be a nice little landing page that you could go to. It'd only be accessible to you, but it'd be kind of a holding place to see all relevant information to you that would reside within VLab. So with that, we're 7 minutes past the hour, so why don't we go ahead and open this up for questions. So you can click on, you can ask questions in the box, or you can, or the other option is you can raise your hand and we can unmute you.
Okay. We have no one has raised their hand. Let me take a look at the chat box thing there. Questions. Okay, so no questions thus far.
Okay.
If we could, while we wait, Ken, let me launch the final poll question.
Sure.
And this is to get a sense of how effective we were, perhaps, at communicating with our audience. So if they would take a second or two to answer this question on how good we did at helping them find value in the virtual lab. Leave it up there for just a minute or so. Okay. Okay, great. We captured that feedback from you. Appreciate it. Let's see. I think Mike Evans has a question, Ken. Could you demonstrate joining a community and downloading a document? I just pointed a community. I just joined a community, but I don't see how I would download a document to it.
Okay. So, so there are a couple different locations. Once you've joined the community, you can see that community. Hopefully, you'll see the community up in My Communities drop-down list, and so then you can go to that community there. If the documents in that community that you're interested in, so the first thing is to get to that community. So you would click on it. So if we're going to the AWIPS community again, or one of the others, you'd click on that community there, or you can click on it here. If you click on it down there, it opens up a new tab. So I'm in the community, and if I go to the particular area where that document resides, so this is their documents and media, and so let's just say I want to look at the SSDD. So I'm doing a quick search, and then, okay, so I click on it, and so you have, if you actually want to download it, in the right-hand side you see that download. So you click on that, it'll download it right to your computer. And everyone's seen my screen, I hope. I didn't, hopefully.
Yes,
John,
we're seeing it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So then once you've done that, then it resides on your computer. So that's how you download it, and that's how you access the community once you've joined it. Hopefully that helps.
Did we get your question answered, Mike? If you respond. Okay. I don't see any additional questions, Ken.
Okay, so let me, since we've got a couple of other minutes, the one thing I didn't touch on that I'll show you briefly is code review. So this is a little bit more advanced topic, but it's something worth mentioning. Is if you're involved with a project and you actually have an underlying repository, a Git repository, where you're collaborating on code too, oftentimes as that project matures, you want to use best standards, and that is to make sure that anything going into the repository has been code reviewed, and so, or peer reviewed, and so you can do that. And we actually have a tool that supports it. So it's called Garrett, And so the way it works is that, the typical workflow is, a developer is working locally on their laptop or their desktop, or it doesn't really matter, but they're working independently. They clone the repository, they make changes to their repository, and then they commit it and they push it back up to VLab. And when they push it up to VLab, they can push it for review. And so when you do that, that then creates a review item within this application called Garrett. And so within here then, it allows you then to add reviewers. And so Jason Burks, who John and I work with, he submitted a change for review that I need to review. And so I got an email, it shows up in my pending list, and then I can come in here and look through the changes through a web interface. And and this is probably not the best example to show because that was an added file. This is a change file, so you can see here in green things that were changed. And if I had an issue with that, what I can do is I can highlight the change and add a comment right within the interface that then gets tracked, it generates an email, and it's sent to Jason. He can go in and basically address any specific issues that I have raised. And then I can reply to it and say, yeah, it looks good to me, or someone else must approve. Or if everything looks great, I would just say, yeah, it's approved. And it's already been verified by Jenkins, which is something we haven't touched on today, but that's a more advanced topic. But the nice thing about it is that everything can be reviewed that way so that the integrity of your code repository is improved as a result. It also has the benefit of sharing code with people and having the ability for them then to download those changes, test it out locally, and make sure it actually runs too, as opposed to if it's running code. So this tool is very, very useful, and it's used in it's required for AWIPs. It's being used in lots of different areas, and actually we've been working with NCEP and the modeling community, and we're prototyping the use of this within the modeling community to switch all of their Subversion repositories over to Git so that they can better work with the outside world in collaborating too. And so that's quite an endeavor as well. So I think with that, any other questions? Or John, is there anything that you're aware of that I have missed that I should highlight? Okay, so I think, let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I didn't touch on that would, I guess there's a You Make the Call. That's another training area within VLab. There's ACLA has their job sheets, and there's a Central Region Sioux has a training page. Those are other areas that that you could look at, or if you're interested. And I talked to you about subscribing to a forum. I didn't actually demonstrate that, but I think that's pretty straightforward. So I think with that, we'll probably give everyone back 14 minutes of their time.
Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I think I had my mute button on, but so Mike followed up with a question seeing if you could demonstrate how to upload a file.
Oh, sure. So let's say you want to upload something to the science sharing section. So the way you would do that is go to the page, and then there's this add option here, and you'll see science sharing document, so you would click on that. It's a little bit slow. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the dev side again, so I'm like, why is it so slow? Okay. our dev site is much slower than production. So, okay, so add science sharing document, and then within here, you basically choose the file, and that's, choosing a file from your system. You would then click on open on that. That's going to take that name by default, but if you want to give it something else, put it in here. You'd provide a description. We had a unique requirement for the science sharing. You will not find this in other communities, but we basically, through lawyers, they said we need to add something like this. So add KS. You can give it a description if you choose to. That's best practice. And then you can categorize it. So we have some defaults here in terms of NOAA strategic goals, weather service strategic objectives, and then topics. So these are essentially managed options. You always have the opportunity of adding tags too. You can do it without having to, if you use a comma between, you can add multiple tags. And then you would just publish it. And so by default, it's going to be available to community members, which is what you want. And so you'd click on publish, that would upload the document, and it would then appear. I'm not going to do it right here because that document doesn't make sense to do, upload that document. But that's as simple as it is. I can show you within one of the other, we've got a test community that I can upload something to.
You might also want to show them the multiple document upload.
Oh, sure. So let's do that. So we'll go over here to a document library. And let's see, documents, that's a display. All right, so this page is a mess, but it's a test community, so you can ignore that. Click on add. And so if we say multiple documents here, and so basically you can drag files here, or you can select files, and then if I want to do more than one, I could select both of those, open those. They're both pretty big documents, actually. They're not huge, but they're decent size. It does virus scanning of the documents when they get uploaded, so that takes a little bit of time. I should have chosen smaller files. Okay, so then you get an area then to provide a description for each one independently. And so I can come into here. All right, now it's for provide a description, the document type, basic document. You can do your categorization. And then submit it. Again, I should have used smaller documents for a presentation or for a demonstration. But so once those get uploaded, they are at that point they're going through the virus scanning, and then they get indexed. As I said, it looks at the internals of the document, and then that'll all be searchable and sortable within the virtual lab.
One thing just real quick, John, I think it's Hovey, prompted me to mention that the slides that I presented earlier will be uploaded to the virtual lab as well. So when we send out the information on the recording, we'll let you know where to reach those slides.
Okay, perfect. So that uploaded, and so then if I go back, we should be able to see those. And one of them was the SSDD. So you can see they're both here within this community. we have something turned on which is not the default, and that is, and I didn't touch on this during the demonstration, and that is workflow. So we have a single approver workflow enabled. What that means is that these documents have to be approved by someone before they actually would show up as being, as being available. So that's not the normal default, but that's something that is an option. Some of the other things that I didn't touch on, I realized, let me just very quickly go there so I can show people, is that there is an online forms builder within VLab. So as part of as a community owner, you can go in and create your forms and things. And one of the things that you oftentimes might want to do is collect information from your users. And so it's pretty nice. You can actually work with us to create custom workflows. So if there is an approval process and needs to be routed to different groups, I tried to stay less technical on this talk, but there's a very robust permissions, groups, and roles type framework within the virtual lab that allows for a lot of flexibility. But for example, this is the way in which you would request a new community. And we developed this form within the virtual lab itself. We didn't write any custom code or anything. It was through their online forms. It's called Dynamic Data List, but it's a forms builder. And so if you want to request a new community, you can come in here. Always go out and look at the communities that are there first to make sure that you're not requesting something that already exists. But then you can come in here, make that request. It'll be routed to the virtual lab support team, and then we would, assuming it's not something, they almost always get approved. And typically we can have a new community available for you. If it's early in the day, it'll be that same day typically, or the next at the latest, or next business day. So you fill out that information. If you need a new project, same sort of thing. You can select new project, and there are instructions on the right for each of these. And so it's going to step you through the project name, the description, identifier if you want to give us one that you're recommending. And then you need to let us know what sort of tools you're going to use. Is it going to use issue tracking? Most likely, yes. Would there be the code review that I just talked about, continuous integration, which I have not talked about today, and then is it going to be a Git or a Subversion repository, team size, and things like that, or repository version. And that's just used by us for capacity planning to make sure we're aware of what's going on. So that is it, I believe, unless we've got any last questions.
Yeah. We do have a couple more for you, Ken.
Okay.
Ray
Sure.
Davis would like to know, can an interagency collaboration group be set up in VLab? For instance, OHFRC and the Corps of Engineers and USGS are developing models together and sharing data.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So what we have is there's the ability, and it's intended for exactly those sorts of situations, where if you're working closely with partners, and you can come in and as a NOAA user, you can request a new an external partner. So you can come in here and say request a new external partner. And what that then does is it kicks off a workflow. You fill in this form, and then those users then are given an account within Virtual Lab Collaboration Services. If you need to collaborate on the development services side, that's supported as well. And you can, and if you want to make a request and have them have both, you can do that. So so that's the way that that works. If you're on a project and you've got a lot of you need more than one or more than like 10, or the criteria is somewhat subjective, but if you got multiple, I guess we say 3 or more, you can come in here and use this form, and it's basically provides, there's a spreadsheet, and you download that, fill out the information, and submit it, and then we get notified. So that's the way that works. It then allows us to, that's why if you saw on the right-hand side, we call this external partners and users on AWITS. And that's because external partners aren't obviously going to have NOAA email addresses. So that's how they would log in. They'd log in with the credentials that we would send them and then log in through that means. So very good question.
We also have one from Ernesto Rodriguez. He noticed that when you were demoing the communities, that those forums sounded an awful lot like email lists. And he was wondering if the VLab can be used to replace, for example, AWITS2Dev, IFTS, and WHFS info, etc.
Yeah, a very good question. We've talked about doing that for quite some time, and they could potentially. The one caveat, and the only reason I think, or the main reason that hasn't moved forward, is that there are users within many of those groups that are outside of NOAA. And so if the primary users were NOAA, then it would be a no-brainer. I've also experimented with and have examples where we tie into one of the traditional list server accounts and have that information be populated within one of the forums here, so that it's kind of an in-between status where you could use the list server but have all that information populate one of the forums within VLab so that you have one spot to go. We have one example where we use a list server account, and the reason for that is it's a way, if you become very vested within the VLab, you might want to know, like for outages and things like that. We're running an IDP, fully redundant systems, but every once in a while, hopefully not very frequent, typically it's not very frequent, there's an issue, whether it's networking or something like that, that might result in the virtual lab going down. We also have scheduled outages twice a month for about 10 minutes, and they're after hours in the evening, so that we can do patching and things like that on the systems. So that sort of information is sent out via notifications. And that actually reminded me, there is this What's New tab within the VLab, and so this is a great way to keep in the loop in terms of what's going on. And so you can come into here, and if you're interested in news, what's going on within VLab, you can subscribe to each of these new communities that are added. Anytime a community gets added, we add an entry within entry, and the same for the projects, so you can subscribe to those. So for example, over the weekend we rolled out a change improving this search speed, and it's a significant improvement, and so I wrote a note about that so that people could be aware of that. And that's something. So we are looking at that. If we can remove the requirement to have users outside of VLab contribute, then it's a no-brainer in terms of moving it across. One of the things that I've been looking at for a while is having another class of users, and that is users that wouldn't necessarily be able to log into the virtual lab and see all of the communities and everything within here, but they'd be able to log in. It's like a light type login where they'd be able to log in and be able to contribute to public-facing pages so that they can contribute. We do, the forums and things do support unanimous or anonymous, posts, but that's not oftentimes very useful, because oftentimes someone might want to be notified then about responses and things like that to their posting. And so one thing we have been exploring is adding another class of users so that people could contribute but not necessarily have full-fledged access to all of VLab. So that's something that is on the radar, but we haven't had time to get to it yet. It's a good question.
Well, I think that about wraps up our question. And I think that about wraps up our time for this episode.
Yeah, we're over by 2 minutes. So.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. Hopefully it's been helpful for people. And if you have follow-on questions, don't forget, log in, click on this help, need help, and go up here and send us an email or provide us feedback, or you can even request a consultation or a demo. Or if you've got great ideas for new communities or projects, don't hesitate to initiate those. So hopefully everyone's finding VLab useful, and you found today useful as well. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.